Silverback watches people scroll endlessly and calls it relaxation. Not resting, not recovery, stimulation. And Silverback wonders how long this kind of brain thinks it can survive before boredom finishes the damage. Silverback sees it immediately. The more someone scrolls, the less alive the mind becomes. These are not lazy people killing time. These are intelligent, capable minds numbing themselves on demand. Nothing looks broken on the surface. The screen is bright. Content is endless. Everything feels occupied. And that is exactly why the boredom becomes invisible. Nothing looks broken. That's why it works. Silverback sees brains that never stop consuming, swiping, tapping, refreshing, jumping from one stimulus to the next without friction. No pause, no resistance, no space for depth. From the outside, it looks harmless. Inside, the reward system starts collapsing under its own convenience. Why nothing feels interesting anymore? Silverback asks the question most minds avoid. If entertainment is everywhere, why does nothing feel interesting anymore? This is where the damage begins. Silverback watches the same scene repeat. A moment of quiet appears, waiting in line, sitting on the couch, a short gap between tasks. The hand reaches for the phone automatically. Dopamine spikes, attention locks in, minutes disappear. And when the screen finally goes dark, the mind feels heavier than before. This is not a relief. This is withdrawal. Stimulation creates withdrawal. Silverback watches boredom mutate, not into curiosity, into irritation, into restlessness, into the feeling that nothing is worth doing unless it delivers instant stimulation. The brain does not recover from scrolling. It adapts to it. Scrolling does not remove boredom. It trains it. Overstimulation kills curiosity. Silverback sees how the system gets rewired. High stimulation becomes the baseline. Low stimulation starts to feel painful. Reading feels slow. Conversations feel dull. Work feels unbearable. Even hobbies feel empty unless they compete with the intensity of the feed. Silverback asks the second question. If scrolling is supposed to cure boredom, why does boredom return stronger every time the phone is put down? Silverback understands the mechanism clearly. Scrolling removes friction. No effort. No waiting. No challenge. The brain stops producing interest because interest only emerges when effort is required. When everything is instantly available, nothing feels valuable. Silverback watches how this spills into daily life. People claim they are bored with work, bored with relationships, bored with goals they once wanted badly. But Silverback knows the truth. They are overstimulated, not bored. Overstimulation kills curiosity faster than ignorance ever could. Silverback notices how attention degrades. The mind jumps before finishing thoughts. Focus collapses under mild resistance. Silence feels unbearable. Stillness feels threatening. The brain keeps asking for more input, not because it is curious, but because it has forgotten how to generate interest internally. Silverback sees how scrolling trains avoidance. The moment discomfort appears, the feed provides an exit. The moment effort is required, distraction is one swipe away. Over time, the brain associates challenge with escape. That is when boredom becomes chronic. Silverback watches people try to fix this by scrolling harder. Different platforms, faster content, shorter clips, louder stimulation. The system believes it needs more input to feel something again. But every increase in stimulation raises the boredom floor even higher. Silverback sees motivation disappear quietly, not dramatically, not through collapse. Through erosion, the desire to build fades. The willingness to sit with difficulty vanishes. Everything that requires depth feels exhausting before it even begins. Silverback asks the uncomfortable question. If scrolling is harmless, why does life feel flatter afterward? Silverback understands the real cost. Scrolling outsources meaning. Instead of generating interest, the brain waits to be entertained. Instead of engaging, it consumes. Instead of building momentum, it resets attention every few seconds. Silverback watches how this affects identity. The person knows everything, follows everyone, understands trends instantly, but creates nothing with weight. The mind is full, but empty of direction. Busy, numb, unmotivated. Silverback enforces structure without debate. One block of intentional consumption. Clear start. Clear end. No scrolling in between tasks. No scrolling during boredom. Not forever. Long enough for the brain to relearn how interest is created. Silverback has seen what happens next. The first phase feels uncomfortable. Restlessness spikes. The urge to check returns aggressively. The mind complains that nothing feels engaging. This is not a problem. This is detox. Silverback watches boredom change shape, from irritation to curiosity, from emptiness to questioning, from restlessness to the desire to act. When stimulation drops, the brain starts producing its own interest again. Silverback sees focus return slowly. Reading becomes tolerable, then enjoyable. Work stops feeling painful. Conversations deepen. Time stretches instead of collapsing. Silverback knows scrolling never made the brain bored. It made the brain dependent. And dependency always ends in numbness. Silverback watches the long-term shift lock in. The phone loses its pull. Silence stops feeling dangerous. The mind regains the ability to stay with one thing long enough for meaning to emerge. Boredom is the signal. Silverback knows the final truth. Boredom is not the enemy. It is the signal that attention is ready to create. Scrolling silences that signal and replaces it with noise. And the moment scrolling is contained on purpose, boredom stops draining life and starts fueling it. Silverback watches what happens when this containment holds for weeks instead of days. At first, the mind keeps bargaining. It promises moderation. It suggests exceptions. It argues that a quick scroll won't matter. Silverback recognizes the pattern instantly. This is not balance. This is dependency negotiating for access. Silverback sees the withdrawal phase clearly. Restlessness rises. Attention twitches. The urge to reach for the phone appears in moments that used to feel neutral. Waiting becomes uncomfortable. Silence feels exposed. The system mistakes this discomfort for boredom. But Silverback knows better. This is the brain relearning how to tolerate low stimulation without escaping. Silverback watches the shift happen slowly. The urge peaks, then weakens. The hand hesitates. The moment stretches. Instead of scrolling, the mind looks around. It notices friction. It notices emptiness. And then, without being prompted, it starts filling that space with something else. A thought, a question, a plan. Interest begins to generate internally again. Silverback sees creativity return in small, unglamorous ways. Not inspiration. Initiative. The desire to fix something, to improve something, to start something imperfect. The brain stops waiting to be entertained and starts looking for engagement. That is when boredom stops feeling like a problem and starts functioning like fuel. Silverback understands why most people never reach this phase. They quit too early. They mistake the discomfort of recalibration for proof that something is wrong. They reintroduce scrolling just to feel normal again, not realizing that normal was the numb state created by overstimulation. Silverback watches attention lengthen. One task holds longer. One conversation goes deeper. One problem stays in focus long enough to produce progress. The system stops resetting every few seconds. Momentum forms quietly, without excitement, without fireworks. Silverback knows this is where leverage is rebuilt. When attention is no longer fragmented, effort compounds. When boredom is tolerated instead of avoided, direction emerges. When scrolling is contained, meaning has room to form. Silverback knows the final layer of truth. Scrolling never kills boredom. It killed the brain's ability to turn boredom into creation. And the moment that ability is restored, life stops demanding stimulation and starts responding to intention. That is when boredom stops being feared and starts being respected.